we end on that. We were about to reach to number 6, which is building strong business relationship. That was we were supposed to go, but the internet was against us. Oh, am I wrong?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Yesterday we were talking about building strong business relationship.
Yes, we talk about that actually.
Yes. Under import and export management, you need
Mm.
to build you need to build strong relationship with your suppliers. You need to develop
Mm.
trust with them, and because if you build relationship with a lot of suppliers, you can get
Mm.
information from them. They can provide you with information. They can provide you with advice. Okay, that this
Yes.
information you can
Yes.
use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. This information that you get from these suppliers, you can use it to
Yes.
take decision. For example, if you want to import goods from outside, if you have strong relationship with
Mm-hmm.
the many suppliers, it will be very easy for you. Are you seeing what is on my screen? Let me share my screen with you. Sorry. Yes, I guess you can see what is on my screen now. Hello, Marco? Yes, Marco.
Recording in progress.
Yes, Marco.
Yes.
Yes, we'll be back. My internet had misbehaved, so let's.
No problem. What you can do, you can continue as long as I'm just seeing your photo, but the screen is not allowed. This whatever. Yeah, it's now already open.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, Onesima said he's coming, but we can still continue. So, as I was
Yes.
telling you, if you want to deal in importing or exporting, you need to
Mm.
open many lines of communication with your suppliers, because these suppliers, they can give you updates on what is happening in the outside there. For example, at the customs or at the borders of each country, these people can give you updates. What is the current trend there? So where do you get this information? You get it from the suppliers that you have in your list. So import and export management lies heavily on establishing and nurturing strong business relationships. If you're importing from
Yes.
Uganda, you need to have like a very big number of suppliers that you know that you are. you have in your in your diary that you can
mm,
talk to. They can give you advice, and they can also give you more information regarding the certain item or goods that you want to engage in. So this includes developing trust with suppliers or buyers, because if you talk to them every time you have to communicate, even when you're not going to do any business with him, but you have something that you discuss, this one brings in trust, such that when that time comes of making business with them, it becomes simple. They already trust you. Okay, they have already trusted you. They already know the person they are engaging in, they engage with. Okay. So,
yeah.
so maintaining open lines of communication and fostering long-term partnerships. If there is room for partnership, you partner with these suppliers, they will be of help as we look into this act of importing and exporting. So, effective relationship management helps secure reliable suppliers. With this relationship management, it helps you to see who is who is capable of doing what. Okay, so
Mm, yeah.
it can give you uh, the energy of relying on certain suppliers, and you know that this supplier can do what I want. Okay, but if you don't bring in,
Yeah.
if you don't open enough communication
Uh,
lines with these people, you will not know what is going on. Another thing also, relationship help you to negotiate favorable terms, because the
yes.
other side will be having fear of taking you back. That's why every time when someone is making a negotiation, like when you go in here in the market in Cuba, people will say, ah, you're my friend. I'm not going to take you very bad. I'm not going to do you bad. I'm going to take you as I'm going to treat you very good.
Mm,
Okay. So why do they say that? Because or maybe you have always been in contact with them, you have always been in communication with them. So because the business has come in, this is the word that we will use, that "Ah, you're my friend, which I will not treat you bad." The same thing applies here. When you open a good relationship with the suppliers, when it comes to negotiations, they will always negotiate favorable terms, because they already know you, they know how they can deal with you. So resolving conflict can also be easy than negotiating with someone whom you don't know. You will bring harsh terms such that if you can fulfill it, be okay. If can't, okay, because you fear risking your business. So relationship management
okay.
is very important.
So,
Then,
okay, before we never migrate to another point,
hmm,
there was a problem facing me, make me even not to feel well. I was been feeling annoyed. Why?
hmm,
Uh, I was just uh, answering in a way which is not supposed to be like that. But
hmm,
like now, example, question come, then this is the point, which is building a strong business relationship. And then after that, you need to explain the way when it's going, because export and import and export management relies heavily on establishing and nurturing a strong business relationship. Full stop. Is it not so?
yes,
Then this is the first. Second to it, when he's asking the example, that is why now what is including what is called supplier or buyers maintaining opening lines of communication. Is
yes.
it all the example? So this is what I want to know today, but I don't want to make mistake again.
Yeah,
Be
this is what
to
you
repeat the same
answer.
point.
So if they ask you a question that give the basic principles of import and export management, then you will say one,
Yes,
building strong business relationship. That is one point. Then you
yes,
start saying that okay, in when you're undertaking import and export management, you should make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you build strong relationship with your suppliers. For example,
Mm-hmm.
the opening up communication with them, fostering long-term
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Okay, this one enough
Mm-hmm.
can earn you the marks if you explain it that way. But if you just give me that building strong relationship and you give me a point like that, I will not even give you a
Yeah.
mark.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Okay.
other points are always the same, almost the same. So the way you explain them according to the key to the question matters. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. So and let's
Okay.
yes, let's continue. Another point is
Okay.
continuous
Welcome.
learning and adaptation. Hmm? The import and
Yes.
export
Adaptation.
landscape is constantly evolving. What we were saying, the import and export activity changes every time. It improves, keeps on changing. Okay, other countries
Mm-hmm.
brings in their regulations changes. Others, for example, if you come in the case of South Sudan, they have introduced
Mm-hmm.
in what we call CID. CID, when you're
Mm-hmm.
importing new cars, for example, if you're importing a new car in South Sudan, you need to pay
Oh.
$100 for CID, okay, which was not
Mm-hmm.
there. This thing just started last month. So continuous learning means you need to continuously learn to know what is there, what has changed in there at the border or at the customs, because oh, those authorities will not communicate everything through the media. Even when they communicate, you may miss it because maybe you're engaged somewhere, you're very busy somewhere, and when it passed in the news, you were not around that time. So you need to
Mm-hmm.
continuously know what is happening there. So if you're an import and export manager, you need to always be visiting the customs office to
Yes.
know what is there, what are the new dynamics, because these changes in the customs there. If I talk about customs, I talk about the authorities which are responsible for executing these tariffs, inspection of the goods or the goods that you're importing, then charging these goods, the taxes, these people. So we can term it as customs. We shall look at that. So oh, even the technological advancements, because you may import your goods like today, this is 2023, and the next
Yes.
time you will import will come in 2024 or 2025. So you may find that the technology which was used today will be different from the technology which will be used the next time. Yes, because
Mm-hmm.
because of continuous improvements, some governments needs to be improving their services, their efficiency, due to large number of people. If you go to the border here again, I will use this border more very most of the time. If you go to the side of South Sudan, you will find that all the work goes slowly because they are still the technology which is used on our side is it's really slow, and it's not updated. It's not like the one of Uganda. The side of Uganda, they are using a powerful technology
Yes.
such that the work or verification inspection is done very faster and things move very faster. Their system is very fast, but for us, our systems here are very low. So you need to be knowing all these things because they have implications. One,
Yes.
the lead time. If you're importing goods for your organizations and they are needed in a specific period of time, it means that
Mm.
you need to be sure of of the time that will be taken when clearing these goods, such that they can reach
Yes.
where they are required at the time that it's specified or they are expected. Okay. Then there are also
Yes. Yeah.
regulatory changes. The regulatory
Yes.
changes, I talked about it. Like when you're importing cars, you used to pay customs only, then you pay traffic and you pay the government some taxes. But now CID has come in, they want also to be paid. Okay, so these changes you need to know because they have monetary impact. Now that $100 on top
Yes.
of what you are supposed to pay. If you were supposed to pay $900, then you add on another 100. So it means now 1,000. So these changes you need to be continuously learning and knowing them and adapt them because they are required. You cannot continue with the clearance of these goods when you have not paid what is required from you. Okay. Then
Yes.
businesses must remain proactive and responsive by continuously learning, staying updated. You need to stay updated of what is going on in the at the border. Like now, me, I'm updated. I know that if I'm importing a car, I need to pay CID, the 100, which was not
Yeah.
there before. So another point of when you're importing and exporting, another point is ethical and sustainable practices.
Yes.
Yes, if I talk about ethics, I talk about fair
Mhm.
labor practices. I talk about the ethical standard. What is ethics? If I can ask
Mhm.
you that question,
The ethic, about the ethic,
ethics.
and that I may answer in terms of whatever is under ethics and sustainable practice. Import and export management should adhere to ethical standard and promote sustainable practice.
Ethics, if someone talks about ethics, it talks about moral principles that govern a person's
Mm.
behavior or the conduct of activities. So, in terms of what we are talking about, eh,
Mm.
ethics here is what govern what governs the import
Mhm.
and export management. What is expected of you, your moral behavior in doing this
Mm.
import and export management. One is you should adhere to ethical standards of your organization that you're dealing in. For example, unethical
Mm.
standards may be corruption. You should not be
Mhm.
corrupted because
Okay.
you will be required to produce documents on each
Mhm.
transaction that you have done. So if you start to forge documents, it means that is unethical. That is not an ethical standard. That is not ethical standard, and it's not sustainable practice. You cannot, the organization cannot sustain it. It means you will be, you will lose your job. Another thing,
Mhm.
you will also cause losses to this organization because if the organization has paid you money to bring them cement like 100 bags, then because you had your personal interest, you start being corrupt. uh, some
Mhm.
of the you cannot deliver these 100 bags that you were told to bring. You may end up bringing only 80 because of unethical practices that you went in. Then another thing, when you are dealing in import and export management, you should respect what we'll call intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights, this
Mm.
one deals in, for example, an example of intellectual property right can be, let me take an example of a musician. a musician sits down and composes his song, and records it
Yeah.
out and uploads it. So if you're dealing in import and export management, you should respect someone's creation, what we call copyright. You should not again get someone's item and you start producing or claiming that it's yours. You reproduce it and claim it as it's yours. Okay, so you should respect people's copyright, because if you breach people's intellectual rights, it means that you will be taken to court, and this one will cause
Okay.
bad reputation to the business or to the organization. Okay, so you should always be cautious of that. Then you should also be considering environmental impacts on what you're importing. Hmm? What you may be importing may not be required by your in the environment that you are in. So
Mm-hmm.
you should make environmental impact assessment before importing other type of goods. If it needs to look for the relevant authorities, you should go and look seek for permission and inquire whether what you're dealing in is really required in the environment. For example, here we have environmental authorities which are there to be overseeing our environment and bring policies that can safeguard our environment. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
ethical and
Yes.
sustainable practices enhance the reputation of businesses, strengthen stakeholder relationship, and contribute long-term success. So if you're very ethical enough and if you're conducting your activities in the ethical way and sustainable way, it means that the reputation of the organization will remain and people will take the organization as the, the, the best one. Okay, so they will not start
Mm.
this trusting your organization. Then it will also strengthen the stakeholder relationship. These people who have interest in your organization or your business, it will strengthen their love. They will continue supporting you and contributing to that uh, company or organization respectively.
Mm.
So those are the points in as in required. So I've given you,
And
like, there are very many points that I've given you, but what you should know at this level, I don't necessarily want you to give me the same explanation the way I have given you in the points in the notes. Okay, what I want
mm-hmm.
you to explain to me according to how you understand the question or how
Mm.
you can put the point. For example, the point of risk assessment and management. You cannot necessarily give me
Mm.
this same explanation. You can give me your explanation that in
Yeah.
some risk, for example, in your area, what risks are you facing? Okay, these are the kind
Yeah.
of explanation
Yeah.
that we want. So
Okay.
yeah. Let me first ask you, this student, I'm not, he has not joined and I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, you remain on.
Yes.
Yes. Are you there, Marco?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm with you.
let's go to topic two. Topic two is talking about the trade
Yes.
regulations and compliance. Here we are going to talk about two
Yes.
things. One, we shall start about the trade regulations. What are the regulations that are there outside there that can minimize trade, that can restrict or prohibit you from importing or exporting? Then another point, we shall also talk about the trade compliance. Hmm? What are the requirements that you're supposed to follow, hmm, such that you can import or export goods? Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
import and export regulations are a set of rules and requirements established by governments to control and monitor the movement of goods and services across national borders. So these regulations, as I told you in the beginning of this module or this lecture, that the government comes in with their regulations because they want to control some of the goods,
Mm-hmm.
the consumption of some goods. If you, in the case of South
Mm-hmm.
Sudan, I have not seen any control. Maybe it's only that we have an embargo or a ban on importing guns, or military weapons. But when you come to
Yes.
other things like foodstuffs or technology or machinery or hardware equipment, they are allowed in this country. You can bring from any part of the country. But in other countries, it's not like that. In other countries, you may go there and you cannot find any product from a specific country. Hmm? For example,
Yeah.
in Uganda, I can give you an example of Uganda because I have stayed there for some time and I know what goes on there. So, for example, in Uganda, you cannot see some other products. For example, some beers, some some beers and soft drinks. They are not imported. For them, they manufacture them in the country. So they bring some regulations which are tough, which can which which
Uh,
makes these people.
uh,
uh, Yes, are you with me?
yeah, I'm with you, sir.
Yes, they make regulations which make these business people or other companies not to import these goods in Uganda. So these regulations aim to ensure compliance with trade policies, the policies that
Mm-hmm.
are brought in the country, then protect domestic industries. I talked about it. I say these policies also aim at protecting domestic industries such that they can also have the market share. Then they safeguard national security. There are other weapons, there are other goods that can be brought in the country and they are threat to the citizens. Okay, so these regulations, they are put in place to safeguard the citizens and the country at large. Then importance of this regulation is also the reason of putting in this regulation is to facilitate fair and transparent trade practices. Therefore, understanding import and export regulation is crucial for businesses engaged in international trade. So, understanding all the regulations of a country, for example, if you want to import from Kenya, I need to understand their trade regulations.
Recording in
Yes,
progress.
we'll be back.
Yes.
Yeah, my internet is going off and on, but I guess we shall finish
Yeah,
this.
I know there's no problem. Yes.
Yeah, it's taking too long to share. Yes, so now let's talk about the people. that you will, the people or other key aspects of import and export regulations, what you will encounter when dealing with import and export. One is the customs authorities. Customs authorities,
Mm-hmm.
these are the people who enforce or who enforce the following. One, they are responsible for inspecting goods. Hmm? They are responsible for collecting duties
Mm.
and taxes. Then they are also responsible for ensuring of that you who is importing and exporting, you comply with the laws that are there. You do what is supposed to be done. So import and export regulations are enforced by customs authorities. So this can, in each country they have customs authorities and they have different departments. So, here we have in South Sudan, for example, Nimbuli, we have customs, we have we have
Mm-hmm.
NRA, that is National Revenue Authority, which is there at the airport, sorry, at the border, even at the airport, they are there. Then we have CID, you know the work of CID. We have the traffic, if you're importing cars, that side. Then, for example, there are also environment people for environment. They are also there. There are very many. There are very many. So these agencies are responsible for this inspecting the goods, that's collecting the duties or the taxes. That is now for the National Revenue Authority. That is the NRA. Okay. So this is,
Yes.
yeah. Let me first welcome Gara. Yes, yes, Mr. Garang. He's still joining. Yes, his mic is taking long to load. Okay, let's talk about the import tariffs. If I talk about tariffs, basically I mean these are charges or money that you're supposed to pay at the border, or when you're importing goods, to you pay to the government, to the government. So import tariffs, also known as import duties or customs duties, are taxes eh, imposed on imported goods. So import tariffs, these are the money that are charged on imported goods. Every good has its capacity. Every product or good that you bring in has its classification. So if at the border they give you, you declare the goods that you're importing, then they will give you the calculations. They will give you the classification where you fall. Then they start calculating the money that you are supposed to pay. That's what we call the import tariffs. So they are designed to protect domestic industries. Of course, these import tariffs are designed to protect the domestic industries. I talked about this in our previous topic, that governments comes in with their regulations because they want to protect these industries. So this is where they can protect it. They make sure that these import tariffs for other goods eh, you- are very high, and you fear, you say, no, next time I will not bring. Or you may even not clear the goods that you're bringing. You decide to return them back to where you brought them in, to their point of origin, because of their expensive taxes. Okay, so you need,
Yeah.
when you're undertaking import and export management, you need to first make a market research on these issues of the import. You need to make a research So where do you get this information?
For
I said if you manage your suppliers very well, suppliers we can talk about. We said the suppliers, these are the external people who supply you with with goods and services that you want for the organization. So, or even you can go to the border and get. Yes, are you still on?
Recording in progress.
Yes, yes, Garang.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you're
How are you?
welcome. I'm okay. You're welcome to this
Thank
class,
you.
but you came in very late.
Thank you very much, sir. I was using that link on Google Meet. So this is what was the problem
Yeah,
until I
but
later
I
on saw
shared the link very
that one
clearly.
from.
So, and you missed also two lectures. There's beginning lecture and even the one for yesterday. So,
Uh,
yeah, we are just started our
I
topic
will catch
now,
up.
so you can.
Yes.
Yes, and another information also before I forget, you will check.
Mm,
You will go to your learning platform. When
yes.
in your learning platform, I've included some links. That is another link called the module videos. So those are external videos
Uh,
from other people. So you can also watch those videos to complement what we have, to complement our content.
okay.
Yeah, those videos will
Okay.
give you
Thank you.
more information in import and export management. So let's go. Are you seeing what is on
Thank
my
you.
screen?
I'm seeing. Yeah.
Yes, we
Yeah.
were
I'm
still
seeing.
talking
I'm seeing.
about the import and export regulations. So under import and export regulations, you need to know who are the people who enforce these regulations, who are the authorities. So those are the customary authorities. I talked about this point already. Then I also talked about the import tariffs, which we
Yes.
said the import tariffs, these are the taxes that are imposed on imported goods. And these tariffs are designed, one is to protect domestic industries. Each country also would love to protect uh, its own industry
Industries.
or companies such that they can grow, they can develop their own country. Then another point also for these import tariffs is to regulate trade flows and generate revenue for the government. Of course, that is the primary goal of all taxes, that government needs to generate some revenue. Then tariff rates vary depending on the type of goods, their origin, and trade agreements in place. Yes, or there are some goods which their rates are very low because of their origin. This country or the origin may be Kenya, whereby Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, that's the East African country, East African community, they have their trade agreements. So uh, those goods that are coming from these East African countries, they will have their low rates due to that. That is why it's very important to have the certificate of origin of these goods. and they ask them at the border, we shall look at these documents that are required at the border. Certificate of origin is to identify where is this goods coming from. Then another point there is also Italy. Italy had an agreement with some African countries whereby even when you buy any good that is manufactured from Italy, if be it a trouser, clothes, be it mattresses, anything, and you bring it into to this country, to those countries that the Italy has had agreement with, what they do, the tariff, the import tariffs becomes very low because of where they are coming from. There are a lot of trade agreements, but with time you also get to learn more. Let's go to another point. Then there are also what you need to understand are the non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers, we talk about those tariffs that can restrict or impede trade, that can restrict trade to continue. For example, quotas. Quotas can restrict the trade. What is a quota? A quota is a deliberate government policy to stop the importing or exporting certain goods. For example, here in South Sudan, oh, the government can put a quota on a certain good. Let me say cement for a certain period of time. They say no, the cement that is already in the country is enough. So we don't want to bring more cement for at least 6 months. So this one can stop. It can stop trade on cement. That is what we call a non-tariff barrier. There is no taxes that is imposed on that, but because of that. Then there is what we call embargoes. Embargoes, for example, or embargoes can be a total ban on buying certain goods. For example, they can put embargoes, or they can, well, there's what we call sanctions. Yes, sanctions. They can put sanctions on someone. For example, a country like America can put sanctions on certain MPs that say no coming back to US. That is a sanction. So if that person was was having some business there or doing some trade, it means there is no trade. Then in the case of South Sudan, they put an embargo on military weapons.
weapons.
South Sudan cannot buy weapons. Even when you go to which country, you cannot buy unless maybe they pass through other countries, but they have ban on that. So these things can restrict trade. You wish South Sudan would buy, they have money, but because of that ban, they cannot go and import these goods. They also licensing requirements. Yes, to import goods, you need to be a company, maybe. So these licenses that are required for you to start importing may stop you from the actual importing, actual work of importing and exporting, even exporting. There are some requirements which are needed of you to fulfill. Then the technical standards, the technology that is required. Mm. So I will not explain all this. You will read by yourself because of time. Then export controls. Export controls. These are regulations imposed by countries to regulate the export of certain goods, technologies, or services. Yes, other countries can regulate the export of certain goods because of maybe their uniqueness. They say no, this technology should also only belong to us. Hmm? Instead of exporting it to other people. This one is done in Japan. I hear in Japan, I've never been there, but I hear it from people hearsay and I also read others from books. For them, because they don't want their technology to go to other countries or other people to copy their technology, they don't employ non-citizens in other parts. For you who are not citizens, you will be employed in some other areas, but the technical ones, you will not be employed there because you will be copying the technology. And to other extent, if you have seen other cars, if you're importing cars from Japan, you'll find that other cars they come in when everything is written in Japan, there is no translation. So why? And you're importing them, it means that generally they did not initially did not want these things to be imported, they should remain in their countries. Then export controls can include export licensing, restrictions on certain destinations or end users, or prohibitions. So they put restrictions that no, this good should not go this much. The trade agreements. These are bilateral or multilateral agreements between countries that aim to reduce barriers. I talked about uh, the East African community. Then there's also the West African community. They also have their trade bloc, whereby there are no restrictions between these countries which are members of that organization. So this trade agreement helps a lot in promoting economic cooperation within these countries. So this agreement typically uh, involve the lowering or elimination of tariffs. So this agreement helps one, they reduce the tariffs, the percentage, or even eliminating it. Yeah? South Africa, they have an agreement with Uganda. If you go into Uganda, if you're going to South Africa, you don't need any visa to enter South Africa. You don't pay. This one is also seen in South Sudan and Kenya. Kenya last time, Kenyan government came in and said, oh, South Sudanese can now enter Kenya without the visa. Then two, they can also seek for employment without work permit. So don't you think that that one is done through these agreements by the government? So this is also promoting import and export. So these are among the regulations that are there. So these agreements, let's look at the prominent agreements that include the World Trade Organization, mm, and the bilateral free trade agreement between specific countries, those countries that I mentioned that you can transact between Uganda, Kenya, South Sudan, and, and Rwanda freely because you have the East African Community e-license. We talk about another point. If I'm very speedy, you can also tell me, and if where you
So
don't
first of all,
understand, you can also
so
ask.
first of all, even though, so first of all, I want to ask about the bilateral and the multilateral.
Bilateral or agreement, this one might be between two countries. Yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So multilateral, that one
Okay.
now it carries a lot of countries that
The
are
opposite.
in that agreement.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead.
Yes. So another point of import and export regulations are the documentation requirement. There are a lot of
Yes.
documents that are required in the import and export operations. So these various documents needs you to comply with these regulations and facilitates these documentations. They are the one which facilitates the custom clearance. They cannot clear for your goods if you don't one provide the commercial invoice. Commercial invoice. This is the payment invoice. The packing list because you want to know what is there. What have you packed if you're packing goods? The bill of lading, the certificate
Certificate
of
of
origin.
what?
is more important, because I told you the importance of the certificates of origin is to determine which country is this goods coming from, and which agreements do we have with this country, and what are the tariffs that are imposed on goods which come from this kind of agreement or this kind of location. Okay, then you go to the customs declaration. Customs declarations is, of course, declaring all the goods that you have, and you surrender all the goods to them and declare what is there, and
Good in
that
better online
the customs authority will be responsible for inspecting and calculating all the tariffs that are required of you. Okay, so accurate and complete documentation is essential to ensure smooth and efficiency in customs procedures. If you don't bring all these documents as they are required from you, it means that they are not going to clear your documents, sorry, your goods. They are not going to release your goods in the shortest period of time that you expect these goods to be cleared. So it means that when you're undertaking this, if you're importing certain goods, you need to know about all these requirements, the documentation that are required, and each document that you get, you keep it, for further reference. Are we together?
Yes, we are here. You.
Yes. I talked about another point. I talked about
Yes.
sanctions and embargoes. Governments may
Yes,
impose
you have been talking
sanctions
about it.
or embargoes on certain countries or entities for political, economic, or security reasons. So these measures restrict or prohibit trade with the targeted parties. Okay. So if your country is prohibited from buying weapons, military weapons, it means anything that is related to those items. It means that there is no goes on that. There is no business there. You cannot import. So compliance with sanctions
Okay.
and embargoes is crucial to avoid legal and reputation risk associated with violating trade restrictions. Because now, if there is a sanction on certain good and you try to force it, yeah, into the country by force, let me say it that way, by force, then it means that you will be taken to court. You will face the legal arms of the government. That is one. They will charge you of smuggling. Smuggling, and that one is a very big case. Smuggling. This one is intellectual property. I'm not going to talk about it. I talked about it somewhere. I said intellectual property rights protects creations of the human mind, such as patents, trademarks, copyright, and trade secrets. Import and export regulations
Yes.
include provisions to protect the intellectual property rights and prevent the unauthorized use or infringement. Infringement means a breach or breaking of intellectual property. So you don't need to break someone's created property, because of maybe you're in South Sudan and because that person is in the UK or US, then he created his own, maybe a movie, maybe a song, and you try to photocopy it and make it yours. You will face the arms of law, because even in the import and export management, they have the provision of protecting someone's idea.
Yes.
Another point here under import and export or management is compliance and
It's
enforcement.
compliant.
Compliance, I say compliance is to comply or to adhere to the state policy rules and policies that are put across. That's what we call due diligence. You do what you are expected to do. Hmm? So import and export regulations are enforced through inspections, eh, audits and penalties and legal action. So it means if you don't comply with the set rules and regulations, it means that you will get penalties. And this one will cost you or the organization that you're working with or the company, which is not good. Companies always want you to be cost effective. Customs authorities have the power to inspect goods, examine documentations for forgery. If you also bring fake documents because you're smuggling in some goods, this one also calls for penalties, and they can impose fines or confiscate your goods for non-compliance. They can take your goods, and where will you go? What can you do? You cannot go to court, because the law is already clear and you did it, knowingly. So businesses engaged in international trade must maintain strict compliance with regulations to avoid disruption in the supply chains and legal consequences. You need to avail the documents that are required to avoid disruptions in your supply chains, because your supply chain states that a specific period of time these goods must be somewhere. But because you're still at the border, because of non-compliance, because of legal consequences that you have fallen into, it will take time, and time wasted is also a waste, hmm, for the organization, and that one comes as a loss. So a lot of activities will stand or will stop because of your incompetence or your inefficiency. Yes. So let's talk about the compliance requirement. This one we have been talking about the regulations,
Yes.
that you need to follow. So what are the compliance requirements? Compliance requirements for imports and export
For
transactions
important
refers to the
required to the
rules
rule.
and regulations that businesses must adhere to when engaging in international trade activities. So compliance ensures that importers and exporters fulfill legal obligations. If you're importing goods and there are other requirements that you're supposed to, the documents that are required and the taxes that are charged of the goods that you're importing, you need to comply and adhere to those requirements. You need to produce all those requirements such that they can clear you.
Yes.
So what are those requirements? One is import and export license. These are two. If you're importing goods, you need to have the import license or export licenses. Some countries require import or export licenses for specific goods, technologies, or controllable items. Businesses must determine if their products fall under any licensing requirement and obtain the necessary permits before engaging in import and export management activities. Yes. So, for example, if you're importing goods let me say from Japan, importing a car from Japan to Juba. This car, before it starts moving, first of all, you had paid for the commercial invoice. Okay, that one is done. Then, two, when the company is shipping that good or that consignment to you here in Juba, they will have to get export license from their authority. If their authority, for example, in Japan states that any good that is living here should have export license first. So you should first secure an export license. The requirement for export license lies against that country. What do they want? For example, they may first want to inspect the good. They may first want the company that is exporting that good to first pay the relevant tariffs or the taxes that are required. Then the country hmm, of destination should, or they might want to know also before they give you that export license. So after getting that export license, then now you proceed to other steps. And this each step that you go in, it has documents that are given to you. So these documents are also essential when you're clearing that good in your uh, in your mother or domestic country where you're importing this good from. Yes. For example, another document is the custom documentations. Yes, custom,
Yes.
that is another compliance requirement that is needed. Customs documentations. Accurate and complete documentation is essential for customs clearance. They want accurate documents. They don't want false. They don't want forgery. This is where people get arrested because of some, maybe because of fear to get a lot of taxes imposed on you. You start to forge other documents. You start to put to give false information. But when the government, when they fall, they get to know this. You know that there are penalties that you get. So this includes the commercial invoices, the packing list, eh, the certificates of origin, import licenses. This one you talked about them. Then another requirement that is essential when you're importing goods is what we call the harmonized system codes. These codes are important in export or in international trade. Is always a 6-digit code that is put on the consignment. So this code is used to determine the product. So these codes are internationally recognized codes used to classify goods for customs purposes.
Purpose.
Yes, so it is used to classify the kind of the goods that you're bringing. Are they hazardous goods? Hmm? Fuel also they have their own codes. So these codes are used at the customs when you're clearing these goods for easy traceability of these goods. So importers and exporters must accurately determine the correct uh, harmonized system
Harmonized
for their
system.
product. The code determines the applicable custom duties, taxes, and regulations for specific goods being traded. If
Regulation.
if you clear your goods and you're given the correct code, make sure that you're given that correct code of your goods. If you're given a wrong code, this one it will affect you when you're clearing these goods. You may get high tariffs for the goods that you're importing. Then tariffs and duties. These are the taxes
Okay.
that are
I get
levied on the goods. Importers are responsible for paying import duties and taxes levied on imported goods. It is important to understand the tariff rates and duty calculations specific to each product and country. Yes, you should make enough research on how they calculate these tariffs or import duties. Who are the people who can give you information? These are the customs people, the agents at the border. That's why I said you should open enough source for information, suppliers, you can get this information from these importers. Anyone you hear that is engaged in importing and exporting, you need to get in touch with that person, in contact with that person to get more information in regards to these tariffs, how they calculate them, such that when you are importing and exporting, you already have some understanding of these rates. Okay, so to be specific, you should also
to each countries utilizing.
you should also establish what we call trade compliance programs. Establishing robust trade compliance program is essential for businesses engaged in import and export management. These programs include the policies. Oh, my minutes I'm left is 10. Let me go it very faster. Yeah. So these programs include policies, procedures, and internal controls to ensure adherence to import and export regulations. This one is now done by the organization itself. It must make sure that it brings policies that enforce its employees to comply, or any person who is responsible for import and export transaction or activity should comply with all the regulations that are put across. So how do you bring this program? Through the policies that the organizations brings across, the procedures that they set. So the employees will just follow these procedures and get to know what is to be done. So it involves conducting regular internal audits, the risky assessment, and employee training. Okay, so I said the organizations or the companies should train their employees on all the requirements. For example, the policies that are there, they should train them. Export controls, I talked about it somewhere. I said
Yes.
export controls are regulations imposed by countries to restrict the export of certain goods or technology.
Yes.
So, what are the best practices for trade compliance? Well, we said these are the compliance requirements. This is what you're supposed to do. So, what are the best practices? What are the guidelines or strategies that businesses can adopt to ensure adherence to import and export regulations to minimize risk and maintain efficient and compliant trade operations?
Accepting.
Yes, Marco. I'm asking
Yes,
you,
I'm with you.
what are the best practices that business organizations should do for trade compliance? One is to establish a trade compliance program. Organizations should develop a comprehensive trade compliance program that includes policies, procedures, and internal controls. They should clearly define their roles and responsibilities. They should designate a compliance officer and ensure regular training and awareness. Here, what do I mean? When you say the organization should establish a strong compliance program, means they should come up with a plan. For example, if organization is dealing in import and exporting, it means they should not employ only, or they should not assign that task to 1 or 2 people only. There should be like a number of people who are undertaking that activity. So they can now try to define the roles. They can distribute the roles to the activity to these people, like the 3 people. So each one should perform his own activity. Then or the other also performs his own. Here, this one will ensure that the employee can be compliant. Everyone will perform his own task. Then another thing also, they should also bring in they should introduce in a compliance officer, someone who will make sure that everything is followed as it is supposed to be done, due diligence. Okay. Another point
Yes.
of being compliant is stay informed. Yes, I may fail to comply with some regulations because I don't know what happened, or I don't know about it. Hmm? Another thing may be they might have introduced in another law, or they might have brought some changes which I don't know. So how should I get to know this? I should stay informed and updated. I talked about this point in the beginning. I said when you want to engage in import and export management, you should first make market research. During that
Market
market
research,
research,
yes.
when you get all this information, you can get updated from the information that you get from the market research that you did. You to keep abreast of changes in import and export regulations or trade policies and customs. You should another information that you should get to know is the trade agreements.
Conduct risk.
What are the trade agreements available from with available in my country with other countries? What are the tariff changes? This is what I said last. I said there are some changes which came in before. When you're importing a used car to South Sudan, you don't pay CID, they are $100, but they have brought in some changes. So if I'm clearing a car and I didn't know that there are some changes which came in, then all of a sudden they come and arrest me that you are not compliant, you did not pay CID $100. Then there are also Minister of Commerce. You need to pay Minister of Commerce their money. All this you need to make reference checks. You need to make checks. What is still there? Is there any changes? So you need to stay updated. So those are the
Yes.
practices for compliance.
So,
And also you need to know if there are new requirements or new restrictions that may impact your business. If there are some restrictions which we have brought, for example, in Uganda, Kenya was stopping Uganda's milk. You don't export milk to Kenya. They don't want. So you need to know this. If you have been a producer of milk and you exporter of milk and you wanted to resume or to start exporting to Kenya, you need to know the changes, the agreements which they have made, because now they can now allow. So what are the changes that they have made? These are what you need to know. Then you need to also conduct risky assessment. You need to perform regular risky assessment to identify potential compliance risk associated with your import and export operations. you need to assess the risk of non-compliance. If I don't comply with this law,
Import and
what is the
export.
penalty? For example, I hear the law on fish. For example, in Uganda, there is certain size. If you don't, if you they catch you with the smaller size, they will confiscate all your fish. Even the vehicle, they will take it. Okay. So you need to conduct risk assessment in what you're dealing in, because this one may affect the organization. So I think we can let my Zoom is remaining with 1 minute, but I wanted to first finish this topic. This topic is just this topic, such that next time we start with import and export documentation.
Yes.
Oh yes. Another thing, you can also engage external expertise. If you don't know what is going there, what should be done, you can get a consultant.
Recording in progress.
Yes, Marco. Yes, Marco.
Yes.
Yes. So
We are supposed to complete this in engage external activities. Isn't it so?
yes, but now Mr. Mwenda has just is going to start. He has just shared the link, so I can stop there. We have gone past
Yes.
our time, so you can now go and join Mr. Mwenda. We shall start from there
Okay.
tomorrow.
Okay, welcome. Thank you.
30 minutes.
Okay, welcome.
Recording stopped.